So we have to get into some other complaints here because I think we've got some before we talk about the games.
Okay.
The few games that were worth watching and getting into some team analysis and what might happen in the next stage of the tournament. We do have to talk about the rematches from that Riot put on RNG, and then we also have to talk about the format and why it's bad because we do need a lengthy diatribe explaining in detail about why this format is so terrible and why it needs to be changed. So first off, let's get your thoughts about the RNG rematch and what was the fair thing to do in this situation because I think it was a really good ruling.
Yeah, I actually think it had to happen. Like, here's the problem. Anytime, like, this is the flaw that people will never get their head around in tournaments when there's a problem, Monty. I've noticed this. Because RNG didn't do anything wrong outside of they should be at the fucking tournament to LAN, let's ignore that part. If we take the premise that they're allowed to play from another fucking country, then in that world, right, RNG didn't do anything wrong. So what happens, Monty, is they go, like, we've had our wins robbed from us, but you haven't, have you? Because you didn't play against a fair opponent. So even though the fans can't wrap their head around that, you didn't win those games. Or rather, you did, but not against the real opponent because you weren't playing the. Like, this is like if you had a Formula One race, Monty, and like Verstappen's car goes normally, and then Hamilton's car goes at a fourth of the speed. He can't at the end go, I did win the race, though. You didn't. You didn't race anyone. You were just racing against fucking yourself at that point. So I think, by the way, like you say, luckily, they also were going to win the games and get out the group anyway because the format is shit. But by the way, spoiler fans, the format being shit is not a good thing. That just saved them drama, that's all. It just meant the tournament wasn't ruined. We sort of can go, and starting now, we can do that, right? But we shouldn't be doing that. Like, in a sane world with a good format, low-key, this should have, like, scuffed the whole tournament. Like, this even might, by the way, there's a world where if you fuck this up some other way, like, someone does get eliminated who's a big favourite if it's Worlds. Like, that could happen. You can lose the BO1, you're fucked, you know? So I do think, like, you had to do the rematches. This was not one where it was acceptable to be like, well, you know, because I mean, they could have gone the other way, Monty, and be like, but everyone on this side had the same fucked up problems. Like, yeah, but RNG didn't do this. That doesn't make it fair, does it? Come on.
Yeah, and also, it's worth noting that their opponents had to opt into the rematch. So all of their opponents did choose to replay the games.
I mean, I will say that's also, fans, keep note of this, that's also where the country RNG's from might have played a role in, you know, essentially that's like that shit back in the day when they used to say in Iraq that Saddam Hussein held elections. And he did, Monty, because apparently the option was you vote for him or you get killed. So, I mean, technically that is an election.
It wasn't like they take an auto loss, Thorin. It's just that they could either the teams were given the choice of like, take the loss you already got or play again, right?
Oh, you couldn't like dispute the replay.
Yeah, like you. Like,
no, but there's the thing. There was a world where that could have happened, though. What if every team except RNG was like, "We're not going to play in the tournament if you don't do this"? Yeah, I mean, I realised I did just go into a fantasy realm where in a Riot game and a game involving the influence of China, people would almost have like a unionisation effect. Like, I understand that's like fucking, that's some sort of sci-fi movie for y'all, but don't worry about that. No, I didn't realise. So you mean they could have just said the L was an L? But I mean, the problem is that it's like you say that you would also get reps in. And let's be real, these teams aren't going to play something like RNG, so it's also worth playing the game. I
think that's an important part of the ruling, right? Like of course, the teams are going to take that option because you might as well see if you can pull off the upset and you might as well get another rep on stage. But you did have, it was an option to the teams. And if RNG had the worst ping, then they could have said, okay, we're not going to replay these games because we won them all, as we discussed earlier. I do think that, you know, the thing about esports is this. There's the good and the bad about having these digital platforms on which we compete. And the good is we don't have shitty refs making shitty subjective calls that are obviously wrong. That is a huge benefit that we have in esports. The downside is occasionally, and with less frequency as technology improves, there are technological issues that are not the fault of either team. It's not the fault of a referee. It's the fault of the technology or the tournament organizer, the tournament operator that is using this technology. And therefore, the neutral tournament operator, whose job it is to provide the level playing field, has failed to deliver that for some reason. This is not a problem that really exists in traditional sports, unless there's some really like bad faith shenanigans about like deflating balls if you're the New England Patriots.
I mean, the only analogy I could think of would be like I did always personally think in both European soccer and American football, it is mad that they play when the pitch is all muddy to fuck. Like, that's the only equivalent I can think of, because I've always thought, like, those games, let's be real, like, I've seen some of those ones where, like, people just look at the game on Wikipedia and it's like, mate, that wasn't a real American football game. Yeah. Like, I've seen the ones where the wind's just blowing the quarterback's ball out of bounds. It's like, my whole team is passing off. It's like, you can occasionally get it in sports, but yeah, true. Most sports, it's the same scenario. Yeah, you don't have to worry about like the FIFA just fucking you up in theory.
Right. They're not going to be latency on the ball that's like affecting, which would be hilarious. But so this is all to say that this is a unique problem that you have in esports. And in my opinion, when the tournament operator is at fault for creating the uneven playing field, as it were, you have to replay the games. I think that's the only logical solution. I think that RNG's like long-winded statement from their coaches on Twitter bemoaning the fact that they said like, oh, we have to wake up early and take these government-mandated COVID tests. I'm like, dude, that fucking sucks. I sympathize with you. Like,
guess what? That ain't any of our problem outside of China. You know what your problem is with there, and careful how you phrase this, boys. It's with China, isn't it? Your country. It's not your problem, is it? It's fucking brilliant not living in China.
But just because they are suffering hardships that have nothing to do with the tournament does not mean that
it can't be Riot's fault. No.
Yeah, they shouldn't replay these matches. And also, what was so gross about what the RNG coaches said was that they didn't even acknowledge the fact that their opponents were playing on higher ping. They were playing in worse conditions.
They made it sound like they were just going screwed over.
Completely. Yeah. Are just like, we're the victims here. I'm like, are you? I feel like your opponents are the victims. Right?
Only the victim in the sense that you got tricked. Admittedly, you did get tricked into thinking you won the games. That's true. But beyond that, like, yeah, the person being the most fucked over is, by definition, the person on super high ping when they're at the fucking venue, mate. And the other thing I would also say as well along those lines, by the way, is like, when you have this kind of a scenario take place, I also do feel like generally, if there is physically time and logistically it is possible, the best decision always to a real dispute where there is no clear answer is to have replay the game, always.
Yes.
Unless it's really like, I did win 95% at the end when I'm up. Like, here's the difference. If we play a game of League, a BO1, and it's like 40 minutes into the game and I have all the fucking Dragon Soul, every item, and I'm way above your if then you have a lag spike and you lose, I might say, like they do sometimes in LCS, like, okay, the winner, the team leading wins that game. You can't do that for this. It was scoffed the whole way through. It's just logical. You have to replay the whole match.
Yep. So yeah, I think this is 100% the right call from Riot, given the circumstances. I don't really think there was another acceptable decision. Not replaying the games would have been even more bias in favor of China.
Asterisks on that, on the matches, wouldn't it? It's already got one anyway, but put an even bigger one, wouldn't it?
Yeah, and I think for me, this whole fiasco just shows that, you know, the tech wasn't ready. It wasn't in a place where they could actually pull this off in a fair environment that would make sense for all the teams to compete under good conditions of competitive integrity. They couldn't practice in terms of good conditions of competitive integrity in the same method in which the tournament was being played. And frankly, this tournament should either have been canceled if China can't attend, or RNG should not have been allowed to attend, or RNG should have had to play on ping and no one else should have had to play on ping.
I think those are the obvious three options, yeah.
Yeah. And
I'll also say as well, this is why we started out by just explaining that they take a physical server and bring it. This is the downside of having that approach to your game, unfortunately. Yes, it allows more security and you can control who accesses it. And by the way, if you're Riot, the best part is no one can run unofficial tournaments. They can't just like actually do it without your permission. But the problem is this, boys. If this was CSGO, because by the way, Valorant has the same problem. They even had their problem at that last chance qualifier last year. If it's CSGO where anyone can generate a server, right, mate, someone like ESL would have had like a nerd German guy fix that problem within 2 hours, mate. They would have found a different way to generate a different server and put it in a different, you know, and it would have just been fixed because you just have that tech over there. So unfortunately, what I'm going to say is this: much like a lot of these situations, once Riot was in the situation, they could only react and do what they could do. But they did essentially, like, they created this situation. They did somewhat make this bed for themselves, and now they do have to lie in it to some degree.
Yes.
Just a downside of this approach, unfortunately.
Yeah, and what frustrates me, Thorin, about this entire situation is that I just want Riot, for once in their fucking existence, to just be honest. I just want them
Where
to
is the
say,
commissioner, basically? Where's the guy who just fucking faces the music and like, we can grill him about this? Where is he?
again, the ghost commissioners, right?
I know, exactly.
Again, to Riot's credit, all the posts that they've made have had people's names on them, which is a huge step forward. Like when they've made these official announcements on the LoL Esports site, it literally says the person's name and their position and their statement. So that's great. We finally have people making real decisions and explanations that are tied to them as human beings.
Just put the LP underneath the name. That's a joke, obviously. It's just a joke, fans. But maybe do.
So the problem here is that we all know what the truth of this is, which is that Riot is a company that is 100% owned by Tencent. Tencent is being bullied right now by the Chinese government into giving percentages of their profits directly for common prosperity. So, by the way, rioters, your company is now directly fueling the Chinese government. And this is a publicly held company that Riot is saying you have to take a quarter of your profits and give it directly to the Chinese government. So you are now funding the Chinese government, Riot employees. Good job. You can look this up. Google common prosperity Tencent. There you go.
You can't ever let Dom appear on the LCS because that would be offensive. So, checking where the standards are, the scales, the old Anubis scales again. They're always fucked, those Anubis scales, aren't they? They used to look pretty even in the fucking Egyptian drawings, but the Riot ones never are noticed, you know. That could even be the name, by the way, of a douchebag Riot, like Riot Anubis. Like, I think it's all fine, personally. Like, I'll make a character. Maybe I'll be back on the next episode.
It's also Nasus. They already have Riot Anubis.
There you go, exactly. They stole the character, exactly.
You figured it out, Thorin. That's what all the Nasus hovers are about. It's the pro players. This is their minor symbolic rebellion.
Yes, it's their protest. Exactly.
Against the oppressive scales of morality in the Chinese government.
And also is a literal dog champion. Does play top lane as well, I'm just saying.
So it's all coming together. So, what they need to say is that, here's the truth, guys. 90% of the viewership of this event would vanish like that in a heartbeat if China wasn't participating, right? Not only Chinese viewership, but other viewership, because people know that Korea versus China, maybe G2. I mean, G2 looks real good, so we'll get there. But it's basically a 3-horse race, and 2 of those horses are heavy favorites, and one of them might be the dark horse. But general interest would fade in this tournament. I would argue general interest already has faded in this tournament to a degree, given what we've seen. But they have to have China there because they've sold sponsorships, guys. You see all those nice Mercedes ads? Well, Mercedes sure ain't going to get their money if China isn't participating. So all they have to say, by the way, is that this is a business decision, which is a totally legitimate concern.
Here's the thing,
totally legitimate.
I've just realized, I know the commercial. The Riot servers, powered by Mercedes, can do 0 to 60 ping in. Yeah, you do that. You figure out the joke. You can workshop the rest. You get the first part was fire though, so keep going.
Well, you don't know if it's 0 or 60 ping. It exists in a quantum super
space. It's like Schrodinger's Mercedes, exactly. Schrodinger's Benz.
Also, by the way, the tournament is sponsored by Cisco, so I can't even imagine how angry they are to have these.
That's amazing. That is amazing. They've actually got the world's most famous network solution company to sponsor it, and then they fucked up every aspect of the network solution.
Classic Riot.
Oh my Lord. And especially not least because, by the way, the kind of person who is a Cisco engineer would be so triggered over exactly this sort of a problem. It's hilarious. I know. The joke's right themselves.
Look, I have close friends who are like very, network engineers with very large, significant companies.
Sure.
And, they've said like, this is they're confused as to how this happened.
The idea this could happen in a world where, remember, we're told TSM's worth $400 million and Riot's worth billions, and they make all like, that's the part where it gets insane. Because it's like I used to say in CSGO, when in CSGO like 6 or 7 years ago, Monte, they once produced a number where they were like, CSGO's made $2 billion in the time it's been around for like 4 or 5 years. And I was like, so wait a minute, so it's already made billions and they haven't fixed it all. Well, then there's never going to be a reason to fix it, is there? Like, if we haven't got it together at billions and we're not getting to trillions and making the game awesome, like, it's the same with Riot. It's like, when do you ever level up, Like, in theory, this is the thing I find whack as well. Because of Riot's position and even the whole influence of Tencent and the funding, they should be leading the industry on all these things. They should be the best. Like, actually, the joke should be, the other TOs should be going, like, ESL should go, look, I mean, now they do have $1 billion, but they should sort of be like, look, we're not as big as Riot. Of course, we can't do what they can do. But it's actually kind of not really like that if you notice in League.
Especially because Riot has a reputation among network engineers as being industry leading.
Okay.
A lot of my friends who are themselves industry leading network engineers have told me when they go to conferences that Riot people are often giving talks because they bought up so much private bandwidth to create their networks. Like, they actually are extremely advanced in terms of network engineering, which means it's even more embarrassing that this could happen. And also those fucking Cisco ads during the stream talking about like 0 ping. It's like, you got to take that away, guys. Like, this is
come on.
It's just so it's so embarrassing. I can't imagine like how mad Cisco, like, they must be in deep shit with that sponsor right now.
To be fair though, that is on brand for American television though, because on American television, if you don't know, you're watching like, and here we are at 60 minutes. There's all like fucking heart attacks coming of people this age, and then right after it's like, get the new double Arby's Whopper, but like. What? Why is that ad right after? Like, so to be fair, that is on brand for American TV on some level, you know, like, what the fuck? Holy shit. And now we're back to why all big food is going to kill you. Like, fuck, all right. Want to see more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, you know, be a pleb and don't.